Okay, so let's install PFSense. So we go up to File, New Virtual Machine. I just generally use the typical settings. I'll use an ISO to boot this virtual machine from. So this is how we boot or install our operating system. So basically I've already downloaded the relevant ISO for PFSense, which is this one here, 2.6. It's the latest version. So we're going to boot that onto this virtual machine. Here we give it a name, route. So it's basically, that's my naming convention, the data center for the virtual machine, and then the virtual machine's purpose, which is this RT, just as short for routing. The location here, D drive labbing it, which is the default config that we've already set, and then it's just the virtual machine name. I leave this at default for PFSense 20 gig virtual disk for this operating system, and I always like to install all my virtual machines with a single disk, a single file for virtual disks. And prior to just booting up this virtual machine, I'll just customize this VM really quickly. If I just go to our diagram here, you can see that PFSense has got two NICs, one on the VMnet2 network, so that's the disk, the NIC that's going to connect out to our external environment, and then we'll have this other NIC which is actually going to be on a LAN segment called Melbourne, and that's how all the virtual machines inside this network is going to route out to the internet if it's required. So in our virtual machine settings, got a default network adapter here, so this is going to be VMnet2, and we'll add an additional network adapter for this virtual machine, and I've already pre-populated these segments. This one's called Melbourne. If you needed to create additional ones or you wanted different names, in here is the place to do it. You can just add and remove at will, and Melbourne. So close that up. Now we can see here two network adapters, one on the VMnet2 network, the physical network, and one on the LAN segment, the Melbourne data center network. Happy to power this virtual machine on. Hit finish. This doesn't take very long, and this virtual machine will start booting up. Okay, so we're just at the first section of this PFSense installation. Accepting the agreement, we are happy to install PFSense. It's just going to ask a few questions, but I don't change anything here. I leave everything at default. I probably don't entirely understand what all the options mean in here, but I just know that from learning how to install this product through other videos that the default is more than enough. The only thing we need to do here is just select the virtual disk to which this operating system is going to be installed on. So to do that, I just hit the space bar and hit enter to click OK, saying, are you sure you want to destroy the following disks? Yes, there's nothing on there anyway. And away we go. This will take just a few minutes. I'll just pause the recording. We'll come back once that is complete. Okay, install's pretty much complete. It's just asking me if I want to make any additional configurations or modifications. Just no for now, and reboot the machine. I'll just pause again. When we come back, then we will configure the network settings. Okay, so we're ready to configure the network. So you can see here we've got two network interfaces, the WAN and the LAN. The WAN has been pre-populated with a DHCP address of 185.6. The LAN has a 1.1 address. Just coincidentally, the 185.6 address is the static IP that we'll set for this particular interface, and we'll need to change this to 10.1 as per our diagram settings. As you can see there, got two interfaces on our PFSense box, 185.6 on the VMnet2 to route out to 185.1, which is our gateway address on our Meraki appliance, and 10.1 for this internal network, the LAN segment network. Okay, so back into here. So to configure these interfaces up, I choose option number 2. I want to first configure the LAN. I do not want to set it for DHCP. I'll give an IP address, which is the DHCP address. It's now going to be static. 24-bit network. And it's asking for the upstream gateway address here, which we do have one. So this is the 185.1 network. So this is the actual formal physical gateway address to our internet that sits on our Meraki appliance. This could be a little bit different in your home, in your own setup, but for my setup, 185.1 is the outbound gateway address. So that's what I configure here, and we don't need to configure IPv6, so we just disable those options by choosing none, and we will manage the web configuration a little bit later. That's done. As you can see now, it's no longer a DHCP address, it's static. We'll also go ahead and configure our LAN network. Option number 2, and that IP address is 10.1.24. There is no upstream gateway address, so once our virtual machines in the Melbourne network hit 10.1, the PFSense box will automatically route all connections out through the 185.6 connection. No IPv6, do not want any DHCP, and we'll say no to that as well. And we are done. So for now, the PFSense box is semi-configured. There's a little bit more to do at a later stage, just surrounding firewalls and things like that. So we'll probably be in and out of this appliance on a more regular basis. There is a web interface, and that's where we will do most of the configuration from. But but we can't get to that at this stage until we've got a client machine up and running with a web browser. So for now, this is the PFSense box all configured.